Donnie of the Deep 3. Welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, man? What's good?
All is well, bro. So my thing is, I think Nico Harrison traded Luka and not the Mavs. He kind of like did his own thing here.
Yeah.
I mean, the explanation was defense wins championships, Donnie. I mean, what's going on, man? What was your reactions to this trade?
I mean, so like the same way that everybody else's was, so it was like you see the tweet. And first of all, I had two texts in the group chat and they were in all caps and it was just like, no way, and you're lying. And I'm like, okay, well, instantly, like, you got to go to Twitter. And so then, like, I go and I see the Shams thing, and everybody's like, okay, yeah, like, he got hacked, right? And then the second tweet comes in from him. He's like, no, this is real. And I'm like, I still don't believe it. So I instantly, like, turn on SportsCenter, see if they're reporting it on there. You see the ESPN tweet, you see all that. And it's like, this has to be the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Because, like, there's just no way that you are, we're in February, like, 8 months removed from an NBA Finals appearance, and then you trade away the 25-year-old guy who is at worst, absolute worst, the fourth best player in the world. Like, if you think that Shea's better than Luka right now, fine, whatever. But like, that's the worst that Luka can be, and you trade away that guy who's going to carry your franchise for the next decade away. It was mind-boggling, and honestly, it didn't feel real until last night, or either last night or this morning. And I saw the video of Luka getting off the plane in LA and he's doing the LA thing. That's when it finally, like, reality finally set in of like, oh no, this is actually happening. He's actually a Laker. And the Mavs really, or like you said, Nico Harrison really traded this man away. It's crazy.
It seemed personal and it seemed illogical.
Yeah, oddly
and
personal.
I think he really just wanted to spite Luka. Luka will probably lose $100 million or more, but I don't think it benefits his franchise at all.
The Mavs.
The Mavs.
Of course, it can't. Yeah, it can't benefit them. And like, he had that weird thing in the short term. He's like, defense wins championships, and we're bringing in AD. And I think honestly, one of the weirdest things that I've seen come out of all of this, because like, I understand why Nico why he has to spin it that way. I get it. Like, you made the decision to trade Luka, fine. You have to come out, say the things, back it. I've seen a lot of people come out and really get on the Mavs bandwagon, like, after the trade, and be like, yeah, well, the Mavs are actually a really good team in the Western Conference this year. And it's like, really? Like, you guys weren't necessarily feeling like that before the Luka trade. So it does feel like over the last 8 or 9 months, like, there's been a recognition of how good Luka is, but then also a weird underlying thing of like, yeah, his conditioning is bad. Yeah, he doesn't play defense. And that has kind of spread to people thinking that he may not be a winning player, when it's like, he's like, again, he just carried this team to the finals. Like, it's so weird. The perception of Luka right now.
Believable, man.
I don't get it.
Let's shift to the Lakers, because obviously it's great for their future. They have a succession plan. But for this year, what do you think it means for the Lakers?
Same thing that it probably meant before. I think anytime you make a trade like this, like a foundational trade, the first year, especially when you make it at the deadline, the first year is normally not the year that you're going to benefit from it, because it takes a long time, or just a little bit of time, to acclimate yourself to two of the best players in the world, fitting next to each other, everybody getting on the same page. And then obviously you trade your defensive anchor in Anthony Davis. You trade the guy who is one of the best defenders in the league, one of the best defenders in NBA history, and a guy who can also, go out and give you 27. And that's gone now. And you trade him for Luka, who's very ball dominant and who does not play defense. And this already wasn't a team that was very talented defensively. And so for championship this year, I don't think that's going to happen. Next year would be the year where you make some more trades at this deadline. You get a whole offseason. Everybody comes, in the summer, works with JJ in his program. And then, like, next year, the Lakers probably are going to be, assuming that they are competent over the next, 4 to 6 months, they're probably going to be top 3, top 4 in the title odds. And you should expect a championship in the next 5 years from them.
Yeah. What nobody's talking about is like we're gonna see Luka and LeBron play together, two of the greatest passers to ever live, and two of the highest IQs we've ever seen on the same court. I know a lot of people are pointing to the fit, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It should be fun.
Yeah,
LeBron is obviously super smart, knows everything that is going to happen on a basketball court. And if there's anybody that is willing, like normally, right? And whenever you trade two stars together, everybody always talks about the fit because it's like, oh, is this guy going to want to change his game? LeBron's 40 years old. And it felt like for the last 8 years, he's wanted to change his game to where he can be the off-ball guy. He can be the secondary playmaker. He can do all the small things. And now he finally has a guy that can create for himself and other people that will allow him to do those like off-ball things,
it's interesting because he always wanted to pass the torch to AD, but it really never felt like the torch was passed. And now Luka's a guy you could definitely pass the torch to, and could be a guy that will be the best player on the championship team.
Easily. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you're Warriors. I mean, look, you never told me you were a Warriors fan personally, but from our what?
So here's the thing. I'm not a Warriors fan.
Okay.
Yeah,
see that's what I didn't assume though. See? You didn't tell me that. I didn't assume. So you're not a Warriors fan.
I'm not. We did the Steph video. They had the jersey in the studio, and so I had to go and, be full Steph fan, which I am. Steph Curry is one of my 3 favorite players of all time. But I'm a Knicks fan.
Wow.
I love the New York Knicks. That's where I'm at. But yeah, like it's really like as soon as Steph retires, I'm not necessarily going to be as invested in the Warriors as I have been over the past 8 years or whatever. But Steph's my guy.
Yeah, it's interesting you're a Knicks fan. So Mitch, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's starting to ramp up. And it was interesting to me that it happened right before the trade deadline. I think they're posturing. I actually said it last night. And then today you see Lakers have trade interest in Mitch. It's all kind of crazy. It's all coming together.
I hate it. I hate the Lakers so much because like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do. And they've been the complete antithesis of what the Knicks have been like for the last, I guess throughout their history. Whereas you have this massive market and these teams that have periods where they are not run well, yet everybody wants to go to LA and nobody wants to go to the Knicks. And the Lakers always find their way. And here they go, just trading for Luka. Stay away from my center. Do not call about Mitchell Robinson. Because for the Knicks, I also think that Mitchell Robinson is low key and also high key, the key to them
100%.
being a championship team.
100%.
Like the only time that we've seen Cat be very successful defensively is whenever he was playing alongside Rudy Gobert and he was able to defend fours and he wasn't the anchor defensively and all that stuff. You need to recreate that in New York because if Cat is the 5 defensively, they're getting eaten alive in the playoffs if they play Boston
100%.
or if they play Cleveland. Like it's going to be scary. So Mitch is a necessary piece for the Knicks. And so it's either him or you go out and you find another center, but he has to play.
So I was asked if the Knicks are legit title contenders when it was the beginning of the season. And I was like, Mitch has to be Mitch eventually, and Mikal has to step up. And Mikal has stepped up. Now that I think if Mitch could be that guy, they definitely have a chance. But you're right, like it's still dangerous when it comes to teams like Boston when they have 5-out offense with guys like Cat on defense. Like that's my biggest concern for the Knicks in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think like you've seen cases of it throughout the season where Cat, there's times where like you can see that he's trying, and like the effort may be better. He's just not good at it, right? Like there's times where he just can't compete. And so like the game on Saturday night against the Lakers was a perfect example. And it was one of the more frustrating losses for the Knicks on the season because you have no Anthony Davis. And the Lakers were able to go in and attack Cat defensively and put him in every action, and they were able to knock down the 3 at really, really high rates. And it's because Cat can't necessarily put that pressure. You can't make Cat go all the way up or else he's getting blown by. And Cat isn't like a traditional shot blocker in that sense. So you can get to the rim on him as well. And I think when Boston, where everybody's so versatile, you already, whether if it's Horford or Porzingis, you always have a shooting threat from the 5. You always have 4 guys on the floor who can handle the ball, who can shoot. It's it's like it's insane. So like what happened on opening night, obviously I don't think that the Celtics are gonna make a record amount of threes every single time that they play the Knicks, but it could happen, right? Like it's the game is set up for them to where they can do so. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how the Knicks kind of maneuver the next 3 days, 2 days.
What do they have to do for you to have belief in them as legit title contenders or upper echelon title contenders?
I think they either one have to get Mitch healthy. Obviously, like they have to get Mitch healthy, or if you trade Mitch, you might also have to trade Deuce McBride just because he's the only kind of flexible piece. You're not trading anybody in the starting five, right? Like that's not happening. And so for Deuce to be the first one off the bench, if you want to go get like a more of a scoring punch, you might be able to do that. But if you want to maybe try and upgrade at the center position, not only to get a good defender, but somebody who's just going to be there. That's one of Mitch's biggest problems, that he's just always hurt as well. And so even if you say we're not going to get somebody who's 7 feet tall and as athletic, but he's going to be here every single game, for somebody like Tibbs who likes to play his guys 40 minutes a night in the playoffs, that's actually a very, very valuable skill to have on a Knicks team like this. So I think getting any type of sense that they have a reliable center is the number one priority for them. And so again, whether that happens with Mitch coming back and they just, ride the wave and we see what happens, or they trade for a big, that's cool. But that's the number one thing for me, to look at them in the upper echelon.
The biggest question for all Knicks fans is, how do you feel about Tibbs' rotations?
So I'm on both sides. I don't mind it. I genuinely don't. Like on a night to night basis, if you want to play the guys 36, 37 minutes, I'm okay with that because that is what it's going to take. And I actually think that it's kind of a zig in terms of like load management. We're going to play guys low minutes. And then whenever you get to the playoffs and now it's 2 months of nonstop basketball, these guys are actually prepared. They've spent the last 8 months preparing their body for cardio and all that.
But is the bench prepared? That's the thing. Is the bench?
That's where I'm, I guess, against it and mad at the rotation, is that you're not going to go 10 deep in the playoffs, but you do need guys to step up. And so I would like to see some of the younger guys, some of the bench, get more consistent play, especially when there's times where you could steal minutes. And I would like to see some of those stolen minutes go to a lot of the bench guys just so that everybody has some level of preparation. But the initial idea of we're actually just going to lean on our starters throughout the year, I don't hate that. And I don't mind it, especially because we're not developing anybody. This isn't a young team. You know what the deal is. We are here. You made all these moves to try and win a championship, and you just brought in Mikal Bridges and Cat. You need to give them as much time and kind of put them in like a pressure cooker type of situation. Like you can't cook this slow on the crock pot. It has to be in like a pressure cooker and kind of speed this thing up so that everybody gets the chemistry. I'm cool with them playing a lot of minutes. It's fine, but there's sometimes where you have to be smart about it, and I wish Tibbs would be a little bit, more intentional about playing guys 40 minutes a night and when he gives those guys those minutes.
So now I know you're a Knicks fan and not a Warriors fan, but
Yeah.
They checked in for Kevin Durant, the Warriors did.
They did.
Would that be good for your guy, Steph? Would you like to see that for Steph? How would you feel about that? Or do you think it'd be better for everybody just stay put, stay where they are?
I think anybody competent going to Golden State would be better for Steph. I think that like the roster right now is so depleted and just uninteresting and clearly not a playoff team. And that's the crazy part about all of this, is that the Warriors have postured themselves and have spoken out in the media about not trying to make these moves like they're chilling in the 7th seed and like they're on the line of being in the play-in or being in the 6th seed. And then when you're a team like that, you don't really care about seeding. You think that you can go into anybody's building and win, fine, whatever. The Warriors are outside of the top 10, and they've been sliding for the last year and a half. And the idea that all of the talent that they have is in-house, that's wrong. It's wrong at this point. And I think their lack of aggression going out to get other guys has sped up Steph Curry's decline. And I think that they're not maximizing any kind of window. And it feels like Jonathan Kuminga and Pods and the young guys that they've wanted to keep around, those are the guys kind of holding them back. And I think in the next you're gonna look back on this era of Warriors basketball and you're gonna be like, wow, we really let Jonathan Kuminga stand in our way of making a final push with Steph Curry, and it's just gonna look foolish because that's not what you do when you have a franchise legend and all-time player like Steph Curry on your team. And that's why, like, for the Suns, they're stupid in a lot of the moves that they've done, but shout out to their aggression, right? They've made moves. They've pushed the chips to the table. You can respect the attempt, right? It's like watching a daredevil. You know?
Fortune favors the bold, right? Like
Yeah.
eventually maybe it'll work out.
Yeah, and like you have, listen, Matt Ishby is a wild boy and he just does, kind of irrational stuff, but he wants to go for it and he's gone for it and he's recognized, I have 28-year-old Devin Booker on my team. I traded everything for Kevin Durant. Damn it, I'm going to try and make this work. And you would like to see some type of urgency from the Golden State Warriors on that, and they've sat on their hands for the last 12 months. And it's one of the more frustrating things that I can remember watching in the NBA when you have LeBron James is 40 years old and they just traded for Luka Doncic. They just traded Anthony Davis, the guy who they won a championship with, and just traded for Luka Doncic. I promise you, if you wanted to trade any of the pieces that you have, any of the assets that you have, to go and make a marginal increase for Steph Curry and for the Warriors, it's there to be had. You just don't want to do it. And that's the frustrating part.
Is the dynasty over? I look at basically that punch as the beginning of the end for the Warriors dynasty. Do you think there's any way they could grab one more title in all this?
I don't. Do you?
No.
Yeah. I think they had a slight opportunity the year after, right? Because they made it to the second round.
I think they actually squeezed that one out. Like that.
Yeah. That was as much as you could probably do.
Yeah.
And it was clear. It was clear after like game 2 or game 3 in that series. I remember feeling like, I don't know where the Warriors go from here. Like, I feel like they've made all the adjustments that they can. I feel like everybody has played probably to the top of their ceiling. And unless you get absolute out-of-body experiences from Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson, and the shooting just goes berserk for the next week and a half, I don't think that they can beat the Lakers. And so at that point, it was like, yeah, this is probably done. But like, you had to run it back. You just won the title. You tried to do your title defense thing, but you're right. The punch, the punch is a devastating blow to the Warriors and kind of just spoiled the whole second or third act of the dynasty.
Yeah. Jimmy to the Suns, you think that's going to happen?
It should. I think. So how do you feel about this whole Jimmy stuff? Because it's very like back and forth. He said, she said type of thing. Like, how do you feel?
Pat started it basically by going public and saying Jimmy's never available. And I think it all went downhill from there.
Do you think it actually started like before when Pat was like, hey, if you're not playing, don't say anything. Like, you need to shut up if you're not playing.
No, I actually do think it started when Pat started going public with comments. And I think that pissed Jimmy off. And then Jimmy started getting petty. And then it just all snowballed.
I think, yes. So I agree. I agree with you. I think Pat going forward, because you've seen plenty of times Pat Riley, whenever Pat Riley starts to, be in the media a lot, like, okay, he's kind of pissed off and something's about to go down. I do think that Jimmy to the Suns will happen. I think that the Suns made that trade, like a week or two ago, to trade that 1 first-round pick for 3 first-round picks to try and have as much ammo as possible to go get Jimmy. The Heat have suspended Jimmy 3 times. There's no
ridiculous.
way. There's absolutely right. There's absolutely no way that he ends the season on the Miami Heat. I think that Jimmy would retire before he ends the season on the Heat. It's crazy. So I do think that he goes there, especially because there's been reporting that he's already said, don't trade me to Memphis. Don't trade me. Apparently the Golden State thing was kicked around and he was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to sign with the Warriors either. So now that's another option. And all the teams that would actually want and need a Jimmy Butler, he's saying, no, I don't really want them. So he's probably going to be in Phoenix.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where he ends up. Let me read you this. Obviously you're familiar already, but I'll read you the full trade. Spurs get De'Aaron Fox. They also get Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings get Zach LaVine, City Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks. Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick via the Spurs. My biggest takeaway is that De'Aaron goes to the Spurs, and the Spurs don't have to give up Vassell, Sohan, or Castle.
Yeah. That's the kicker in all this. And I think like the mantra for the week for the weekend is the rich get richer and the dumb get dumber. The Chicago Bulls are idiotic and the Sacramento Kings are also idiotic. The Kings, I think, are worse than anybody because you literally built, and everybody's pointing this out, you built Chicago Bulls West. You just reunited DeMar and Zach. You have your offensively talented big that does not play defense in Sabonis,
Right.
which is Vucevic. You have your top 5, power forward pick that you were trying to push and trying to develop, hasn't necessarily gotten to that level in Keegan Murray. And then you have your athletic guard who's kind of gonna run everything in Malik Monk, and then that, was Kobe White throughout this whole thing. You are trying to win 41 games every single year with that roster. And the roster has no ceiling. And it reeks of desperation and of fear that you don't think that you can do your job properly to actually draft and build a team again in the next 2 to 3 years. So for the Kings, it's bad. For the Bulls, I mean, you probably could have gotten maybe a little bit more for Zach LaVine, but I think this whole era is like you sold way too late. The entire NBA world knew 2 years ago that the Bulls weren't going to go anywhere. And as soon as Lonzo and his knee as soon as that injury got to the point that it was, you knew the Bulls aren't going to be anything. They're not going to be a top 2, top 3 seed. You should probably blow this up because you guys are the 9 seed every year. And now, once again, they wait too late to trade an asset, to trade a player, and they don't get a ton back. So it's kind of just perpetuating everything. And then the Spurs always seem to be the smartest people in the room. They always seem to be the slickest people in the room. And to not give up Castle or Vassell is mind-boggling. It's absolutely crazy that you don't have to give up any of those 2 pieces, still get De'Aaron, and now you have your core, and you still get to pick between Vassell or Castle as your developmental piece.
Right, you have trade assets. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And still be able to flip them and further your core. And so, like, if you end up going and you have De'Aaron Fox, you have Wemby, great 2-man combo. If you believe in Vassell more than Castle, whatever, you trade Castle, who's still a very young player and a lot of people like. You can get a third guy, and now you can have a big 3 of Fox, insert wing here, Vassell, Sohan, Wemby. That lineup right there is the lineup that can compete in the Western Conference, and they still have mad picks, and so it's very interesting that the Spurs have come out once again on top without giving up anything.
Zach's kind of in a similar situation. Like, before the whole Luka thing, which was crazy, I wanted to see Zach actually with the Lakers. Like, I want to see him with a team that could actually make a title push, And just him with the Kings is like, it's I mean, yeah, they're better than the Bulls, but as you said, it's like a similar situation,
Yeah, and I feel bad for Zach because he was hooping this year.
Yeah.
He was hooping this year, and I think that everybody really got down on Zach LaVine last year after he was hurt. And one of the moves that I've been saying for a long time, and so my co-host Mo, he's been saying actually for the last year and a half, Zach LaVine is going to go to the Kings. He's been calling it, and the Kings have kind of been linked to Zach in certain areas. But I wanted to see Zach LaVine honestly on the Pistons. I thought that would have been a great,
him and Cade,
great fit, and it would give the Pistons an extra scoring punch and everything that they needed, and something like that. And I thought that would probably be the best role for Zach LaVine. And so it kind of sucks that he's going to go to one of the smaller markets on the West Coast, and this great season that he's having, it's probably going to get lost to a lot of people. So he's just going to be, a king playing at 10:30 Eastern, and not a lot of people are going to watch. So it sucks.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about All-Stars real quick because my biggest starter snub was Cade for me, but I do want to hear your thoughts on the biggest snub overall when it comes to the All-Star game. We have LaMelo obviously putting up crazy numbers, but the team is losing. We got Norman Powell's having a great season. Kyrie Irving. Who do you feel was the biggest snub for this year's All-Star game?
I think Trae Young was the biggest snub. I
Okay.
think Trae Young at this point is not only the most disrespected kind of star in the league, but he's also the most underrated. And people see what Trae Young does, and obviously, like, he's not having the best shooting season, but he's still Trae Young, and year in and year out, he's one of the best passers in the league. And for a guy at his size and his frame to still be able to lead an offense and be an engine, it's amazing. It's genuinely like amazing what he does on a night in and night out basis. And I think people take him for granted like nobody else. And I mean, come on, like 20 and 10, 20 and 11, and his team is, they were doing decent. They were the Hawks. They were mid, but like that's fine. And in a kind of weakened Eastern Conference, he should be an all-star. He needs to be an all-star. And everything that everybody was praising LaMelo for, Trae Young has done before. And they were saying like, oh, it's not winning basketball. It's not that. Nobody was praising it when Trae Young was doing it 2-3 years ago, and LaMelo's doing it now. And you understand the situation, but Trae Young is a great basketball player, and it's not being appreciated.
Put up the numbers he does at the size he has without elite athleticism. The guy's super quick, but he's not a super elite vertical athlete, is incredible. And he's one of the best passers in the game, and he's not a guy who could see over the defense either. Just one of the most underappreciated players ever, probably. I totally agree.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because I felt this way last year, and it's going to be really, really weird when you look back at Trae Young's basketball reference page and you see a bunch of 20 and 10 seasons, 19 and 11 seasons, leading the league in assists, and there's not a requisite amount of all-star selections that's going to go along with it. It's going to be really weird. So I actually do feel bad for Trae Young.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your podcast journey. Obviously, you have the Deep Three. So for me, what I was wondering personally, and I think the listeners will find value in it, did you start the Deep Three and then joined in with House of Highlights, or was the Deep Three grown within House of Highlights?
So we had started it. So whenever we started, because Isaac had called me, because Isaac and I went to college together.
Okay.
And so we did the whole like sports journalism path together. And so we've known each other since like sophomore year in college. And so he was working at House of Highlights and actually working on the Through the Wire page now, the
Pierre's
numbers on the board.
Pierre's like my bro. That's my guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shouts to them. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, the numbers on the board crew. So Isaac was working with them, and he was working on their short form stuff. And so then he had called me, and we had tried to start basketball podcasts before. And this is honestly, the TD3 is probably like our fourth iteration of a podcast. And there's just times before where it just hasn't worked. So we tried it before, do all this. And so as we grew, again, Isaac was working at House of Highlights. And so as we grew, that partnership was kind of already there in terms of them.
So do you feel like it started outside of HOH or inside of HOH?
Yeah, it wasn't anything to where like HOH was like initially involved in it.
Right.
But the connection was always there just because Isaac and Mo were employees there. Because Mo also worked there. So it was always like, we know what's going on over there. They see us. And so that eventually, the partnership just kind of happened. But it wasn't, House of Highlights approached us and was like, hey, we want to do a podcast. Like, do you guys want to do it? It was kind of separate, but, eventually just merged.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Where can we find you? Social media, everywhere else. Thanks so much for taking the time. Let us know everything, man. Talk to us.
Yeah, so you can find me on, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, at DSmoot3D. You follow the show, the Deep Three Podcast, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. We're mainly on YouTube. It's happening on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern. We do live streams every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Full episodes drop every Friday. And so, yeah, so it's like 2 episodes a week. And I promise you follow us, you will see us every single day. We drop short form content every single day, so it's great. But yeah, check us out on all platforms, man. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, all that stuff. So yeah, man, I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, man. I mean, our first meeting was really fun. I had a blast doing that. And this one was definitely a different vibe, but it was fun as well.
For sure.
Have a great one. Talk soon.
You too. See you.